thanks for the speakers before, because this never happens, that actually I get more time because you're so fast. So normally I'm like, okay, I'm getting short as the last person. So super nice. 20 minutes? No. Okay, 50 minutes. Good. Anyways, yeah, I'm going to talk about data visualization. And first of all, before I start saying things, what maybe some of you heard before, has somebody been in a lecture from Superdot or about modular information design? Okay, good. Yes. Yes, I know, Andrea. Good. Okay, cool. Good. So I'm safe. Okay, so my name is Darian, yeah, and we're at Superdot, and we are, as you can see, actually, if you go by the river, more into the harbor. We are at the Südquai-Straße. This is actually the border to Germany. And actually there is Ostquai and there is Südquai. So we are really, really in the beautiful harbor. This is how our office looks like. That's how the sunset looks like when we have a beer there. And yeah, we enjoy being in Basel. Who is we? We are a very small and efficient team. We had the discussion just before. Our goal is not to be big, so we are very happy to be a small team. It's in the team, it's Nicole. She co-founded Superdot. She's by her background, visual communication. She did bachelor and master in visual communication, so she's a designer. We have Sarah, she's an illustrator. And we have Aaron, who studied art. But actually, all of us are very much into data and data visualization. What do we do? Since 2011, we are at the experimental edge of data visualization, data design, data/whatever buzzword. Now, I mean, what you can see is we like to experiment with virtual reality, with videos, with augmented reality, with print, with web, and so on. But back to the roots and back about me, this is a picture from the Vienna Rathaus. Why is it important to me? Because I grew up in Vienna. I studied business informatics as a Wirtschaftsinformatik, and at the end of my studies, I came across this image, and that's an image from the Rathaus, where Otto Neurath in 1920-something, so end of the 20s, did an exhibition about the so-called Bildstatistik. And I was amazed. I was like, okay, never heard about that. Maybe I need a master to hear about that, but it was really the last days of my studies, and I was like, okay, I think this is amazing, especially because I was working back then as a Werkstudent in IBM, and I was responsible for the back office, so I was writing all the protocols, and I was really asking myself about inefficient communication. So I was like, okay, we should draw, and we should do more visual stuff. So, long story short, I went into the archives. There is even an archive in Vienna about these amazing times when there were no computers and statistics were beautiful. Okay, this is provocating, sorry. No, and I just went there and I found really, really nice depictions which are about statistics. And you have to know the background why these things happened is that Vienna, there is the Rote Wien, that means the social Vienna. And there was the Sozialversicherungsanstalt, so the social insurance organization from the government. And they have been trying in the 20s to find a visual language for the people who are not able to read and write. So for the analphabets, they were trying to find a new visual language. And I was like, okay, I don't need to be an analphabet to love this, so we should do these kind of things again. So that's the long introduction. Yeah, you see this is a second image somehow because there is very often the question that people ask, okay, but yeah, I mean, there are rules about diagrams and data visualization, and I tried to explain it since some months with this image, which is showing on the left side, me in a museum, this is a museum, trying to cook by a recipe. And on the other hand, you have an event that we had in our office where we did freestyle cooking. That means we took the ingredients and we mixed grapefruit with, I don't know, with cheese and olives, and in the end, something new came out. Maybe it was good, but maybe it was trash. So why do I show this? That's actually because this is not our direction, because that I would see as a recipe, that I would see as a, it has definitely a very big importance to work like this, but actually where we are coming from, because I have to say the reason why I'm in Basel is I came to study at the School of Design, Basel Hochschule für Gestaltung. So I saw this book, and this is actually from the Schule für Gestaltung from the 70s, and there is an exercise where you get the grid, and for a half a year, you are not doing anything else, just coloring that square with different variations. So they are not torturing you, but they are asking you to think around the corner, and then you're like, okay, so you begin with vertical lines, and then from the vertical lines, next week, you are allowed to do them diagonal, and you're like, oh my God, I'm allowed to do diagonal lines now. And then next week, you have to do vertical and diagonal, and you're like, oh my God, so many possibilities. So what I'm about to say is, in design, there are exercises which train you to work in a very restricted system and to come up with different variations, and that's actually the beauty. And somehow try to, I don't know, bring this in relation is that we have, of course, in data visualization, the guided data visualization, the standard data visualizations, which are, I mean, the field is so big, and I'm not saying that the guided is bad. I'm just trying to explain that we are going the freestyle. And of course, you have more simple diagram types, and you have more complex with more dimensional diagram types. Speaking of, we teach at universities in 6 different programs in Switzerland. And with students, we try to be creative with data, which means we see data as a raw material. So as when you work with paper, and then you try to take the data, and based on the data to come up with new forms. Yes, and the question, maybe, this has been done more like a accidental way of expressing an idea, but there is more structure than we think. So then came COVID, and we had no projects, and we started working and thinking and trying to bring our approach of this kind of freestyle way of making diagrams into more a system. So we draw all the possible, we call them elements, so kind of what kind of element, a visual element, could you have in order to translate data. So we analyzed all the possibilities from the past, came up with new possibilities, and also tried to restructure and regroup them and see how do these elements come together, what kind of diagram types can we create. So when we finished, we tried the Kickstarter campaign, and it was super amazing because we made $50,000 back then. It's 46,000 francs in pre-order for the book. Yes, I want to say yes, it's a book. I have one piece there on my chair. And what we show in this book, which won some awards, is actually we show a system which consists of elements. We call them diagrammatical, visual, and structuring. the dimensions. And when you combine these ingredients, it's like cooking. And when you combine these ingredients, you create something new, a multidimensional visualization. But I'm not going to talk too much about the book because we have 15 minutes. I also want to show some projects. But this is kind of just some elements picked out of the book, showing how can you represent quantities, positions, relationships, and so on. This is about the visual dimensions. Also just a selection because we have 80 elements introduced in the book. And we have the structuring. And actually how that whole thing works is that we see the data cube, that's the yellow one, that's a table, let's say an Excel chart. And then you take one column, maybe the age of a person, and you represent the age from a person with the line length, that's the blue element. Then maybe you take the gender of the person and represent it by the saturation of a color. Then you take the color for the family column, so who is that person? We take, let's say, blue and red. And then you split the whole thing by the column of the generation. So there are 4 data columns. And actually by doing that, this is just a very simple example. The book is full of these examples, how to use that. You create something new. I'm not saying this is a super great diagram type. I'm not saying this is the best readable diagram type. I'm just saying we cooked something new and we are then trying if it tastes good or bad. Yes, and this is in Lucerne. This is actually what the students do. This is based on the approach they are creating based on a data set, very different diagram types. And the best thing about that, everything, it's fun. So actually, with designers, it's sometimes difficult to work because they say, I'm not the data person, I'm not the technical person. But when you get here, they experience that working with data is fun. So it's kind of, we are building a bridge between disciplines. One example of what we did is the book, it's called SDG Graphical. We did that for the Federal Statistical Office, for BFS in Neuchâtel. We do a lot of projects actually with them. This is for the UN World Data Forum, and based on that book, we created for the Vienna Design Week a new installation, what you can see here, where actually people could interact in a dedicated room with the SDGs. And these SDGs were we programmed. So this was what I always wanted to do, sorry. This with Arduino, physical, like this joystick thing, it was always my thing, what I want to do. And we programmed, actually, that this was on a very big screen. We programmed an application which is in real time taking the data from, open data from the United Nations. And the data that we have, and also the data quality which is there, is then represented into, on the left side, in a diagram. Oh, yeah, I'm very fast here. Okay, it's represented on the left side on a diagram type showing each country with one dot. So actually, this is kind of all the countries from the world regarding the proportion of population using the internet. It's an easy SDG. And the goal, of course, to get until the target direction of the 100. And then you can see all of them, and you can see a detailed depiction of Nigeria here with 55%. You can see the world average. And yes, this is an experiment. And it was a very good and a successful experiment. We had 20,000 people playing with statistics at the Vienna Design Week. And the other part of the medal was a game when we provoked the people, asking them questions, what they think, how developed are countries. And what we wanted to show is the bias that we tend to underestimate countries outside of Europe, or overestimate. So actually, we wanted to show that countries are more developed than we think. So that was actually the game here. Yes, and the last project is this is actually quite new. We worked on the digital transformation strategy with the Canton Zug. And you have to know from the background that the Canton Zug is doing a lot of IT projects, and they are financing these IT projects, and they are financing these IT projects with tax money. So there is the need to inform the people where is the money going to, and what are these projects about, what are the topics, how far are they developed, and how much money do we spend. So what you see here is a poster which was printed to every employee working for Canton Zug, where you can see actually in the circle, each of these lines is a project which is running now. You can see these colorful dots. These are strategic topics of, let's go to the next one. These are the strategic topics. This is the website, which is mobile-friendly, programmed, interactive, playful. And you can see on the left side, you can see the projects. If you are interested, you can dive into more the design thinking trainings project. You can see from the color dots, that's kind of the DNA, where is the project improving the processes, is the project about competencies, the culture, the technology, and so on. So actually, this is the characteristic, is the color. And then you have fields about, is the project for the users, what kind of users, is it for the politics, the economy, or the employees, how long does it take, and what budget does it have? And if you are interested, you can dive into the dashboard, explaining more about each of these projects. And this is real time. So actually, we did a very big step here in Canton Zug to educate and to translate the data that they have and what do they invest in. Yes. Yeah, if you're interested in the course, we have a self-hosted online course about the book. It's just 10 francs. You can learn the whole thing in 2 hours. That was the goal, somehow to spread the word. Yeah, I think I'm done. But if we have this very storytelling entertainment video with the director from the statistical department, if it's, we have 4 minutes?
4 minutes. I think so, yeah.
You want to see that? It's kind of done. Yeah or no? Yes? Okay, good. Go. No, okay, good. So this is the video we did with the statistical department. This is the director from the department, which is always a question, are you good as an actor to explain something? So sometimes data people are not the best actors. So in this case, we worked on this data visualization, which is 3-dimensional. You have on one axis, you have the income. The dots are the countries. The other axis is the CO2 level per capita. And the third axis, where they move in the depth, is the life expectancy. So the life expectancy and the income, that's actually already used by Hans Rosling. So you have seen that video probably at some point. And actually, they came up to us and they said, okay, they would like to experiment and to further develop that idea. So we said, okay, let's bring in the CO2 per capita and translate the 2-dimensional model from Hans Rosling into 3 dimensions. And then came a video production company with amazing equipment and storytelling. And they made the story around the visualization. So that's not our part. If you like it or not, that's their story behind.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll keep in touch with you. What she said was great and true, and everything was right, but it's not accessible to a wider audience. What we need is visualization that makes the content more understandable.
Hi.
What is data?
That represents one data set.
Here.
A little mixy-mixy.
Sorry.
That's a good data set.
Yeah.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
I'll use a well-known visualization from Hans Rosling to analyze income and life expectancy in all countries over the past 200 years. I'll use it to demonstrate that data and statistics support democratic dialogue and are a reliable and independent foundation for profound decisions. Income and life expectancy form the two axes, and the bubbles represent the different countries. European countries are in blue, Asia in red, the Americas in yellow, and Africa in green. The size of the bubble reflects the size of the population. I'm showing you the world as it was 200 years ago. We can see that at the beginning all countries were down here. They were all poor and had low life expectancy. But as we go through time, the industrialization in Europe boosts and drives the economy. Initially, the countries in Africa remain at the bottom and make little progress. Income and life expectancy increase, and countries tend to move to the upper right-hand corner. But this doesn't happen just in a straight line. Let's slow down for the 20th century and have a closer look. We can see multiple dips, which are the effects of global events. For example, decreases in life expectancy due to Spanish flu or the two world wars. Or economic setbacks occur during the Great Depression after the world economic crisis. But after the First World War, factories were able to produce in record time, thanks to conveyor belts, leading to more income. We're now at the time of the Second Industrial Revolution, and the range between countries is huge. Let's stop here for a second and have a look on the world in 1950. Up front, in addition to the USA, are several small European countries that have become rich as a result of their colonies. Africa is still less developed and lacking in infrastructure and political structures. But look what happens from 1950s onwards. A few countries from Asia and South America are beginning to catch up. The so-called gap between West and the rest seems to be closing. Although everyone started at a similar position, differences have been enormous. Over the time of 200 years, we have seen remarkable progress. This visualization shows clearly how life expectancy, ultimately the health of all of us, is strongly correlated with prosperity. With statistics, assumptions become knowledge, thus supporting decision-making of all interested parties. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow, thank you very much. You're really passionate about this subject. We know this representation very well, and we tried to develop it a bit further. May I show it to you? Let's switch places. Look, the world is not just two-dimensional as you approached it so far. You illustrate aspects of social and demographic elements. We have life expectancy on the economy-wise, we have the income. But that's not enough, that's not the whole story. There is a third axis, which is the environment. And these three dimensions make up the concept of sustainability. On this axis, you can see the annual per capita CO2 emission. We are looking here at the past 70 years because we have very reliable data for this period. And the range is, again, enormous. At first glance, it might be surprising that big countries like India or China are here on the bottom on the left. But as soon as you go through time, you can see that, for example, China made a huge leap forward. They ramped up their industry, boosting up the economy, and from 1990 onwards, they're catching up with the prosperity countries. Let's stop here for a second. So the axis of CO2 emissions shows that an increase in wealth has a negative impact on the environment. So the reverse also holds true. Let's have a look at the past 20 years again. Economic decline, as we have seen after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, set Eastern European countries back. This led to a reduction of CO2 emission and narrowing the gap again. However, a reduction on CO2 emission should also be possible without economic losses. Countries like Germany and the United States have taken measures to reduce the CO2 emission. And as you can see, it has an effect. And this is how the world looks today. Many countries experienced an economic boom, but this goes hand in hand with a great impact on the environment. It's still a huge difference between the country in the top right-hand corner and that one here on the bottom on the left. Initial steps have been taken to reduce the environmental impact, but it's not enough. Per capita CO2 emissions are still far too high. We have to find ways to create sustainable prosperity and well-being. Look, the world is constantly changing, and data and statistics help me to understand these challenges better. Hans, Ola and Anna Rosling demonstrated this years ago. We need to move forward with these ideas, with well-visualized data and statistics, and we can help society to make the right decision to cultivate sustainable prosperity.
Interesting development. Have you already analyzed the proportion of women in national parliaments?
Yes, but up to now not with a good visualization of this.
You'd be surprised who's in front.
That's it.
Thank you.